PJ Smith, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So, straight into it, mate.
Yeah.
Who is Roy and where does he come from?
Well, the whole point of Roy is that he's someone who doesn't know who he is, as are the majority of us, really. He's got different faces for different scenarios, and he's having a bit of an identity crisis. That was the thinking behind him. It's an exaggerated version of me, really, as are all characters that people write, really, or mostly. Yeah.
Every author gets asked that, don't they? It's like, especially if they're really closely associated to one character, it's like, how much is that is you? Yeah. How much that is you? Because people are desperate to, really, they hope that it is, a lot of them, don't they?
Yeah.
Especially if you love like a particular series or a TV series or an actor, and you want to imagine them being like that person.
Absolutely, yeah, totally.
But then there's Roy. I don't know how much you want to be like him.
It's funny because I started doing it just because someone else kind of threw it right on my toes and went, your name's on the poster for the next gig, you're getting up. There was no thought behind it. And when I did it, I realised that I enjoyed it and other people enjoyed it. But one of the things that kept happening, which I quite liked and have played with since then, no matter what story I'm telling, and some of them are so far-fetched, but people always say, is that true? So that's my kind of aim when I'm writing, make it so ridiculous, but still quite believable that people are just left wondering, is that real? Is he, people, because the questions I get asked after gigs and that, having like mini therapy sessions after gigs, people are coming up to me, oh, my daughter's been through that, she's going through it now, she's going out with someone like that. Like, he doesn't exist, I've just made him up.
Yeah, but that's the best form, isn't it, really? You look at the great, TV shows, say like The Office, for example, like David Brent was based on a real guy that Ricky Gervais had heard of or used to work with, wasn't he, or something?
He's an amalgam of people he used to work with.
Yeah. Like, so it's always the best way. And when I first, I think the first one I listened to, yours, was A to B, is it?
Yeah.
And that was just me straight in, and I was like, A to B. I just assumed you were this guy Roy who's, got a collection of stories from various sort of situations that he's found himself in throughout the his life.
You messaged me straight after listening to that one.
Yeah.
Like, we've got to get him on. Yeah. But my first one was, whose coat is this jacket?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's different from A to B, really, isn't it?
They're all different. They're all very different.
It's a lot darker.
Yeah.
And although it's just about believable, isn't it? Whether or not you think he's killed his alpha at the end or not, that's where you start to think. But, people do get a crack off the dad and sometimes hit him back and that sort of thing. It happens, sadly, all too often. But, you play with the boundaries of fiction. It's good.
For the sake of that story, it was quite dramatic.
Yeah.
But I think everyone can identify with those moody situations you have in the living room. Not so, there doesn't have to be like extreme violence like there was in that story, but just that feeling you have in the living room when you're a kid. Even if, you think your upbringing was great and you had the best of everything, we still all remember them. Oh God, this is horrible.
Yeah, I think it plays brilliantly on that sort of man of the house battle that happens when every lad starts hitting hitting puberty or his teens,
Yeah.
It's like a pressure cooker, that though, because I felt like tightly wound up just listening to it.
Yeah.
And you're like, something's going to give here. He's not just going to go to the pits and get off, and his dad will just shrug and carry on reading the echo. It's building to like a crescendo, and then you just don't expect, or I didn't expect, like from going in terms of the violence from 0 to 60. Once he's cracked his dad, thought that might have been it. The moment intervening, it goes Tarantino after that, doesn't it?
Yeah. You get different reactions in different scenarios. So when I do me Violette nights, it's kind of like I'm playing to a home crowd. Like they're into it. It's not a big challenge. They like it. But I get off at different gigs and in different kind of scenarios. So little open mic gigs in a student area of Manchester, which are mainly populated by, I don't know, students and a lot of older women for some reason. And I finished that story and they're just like, they just stood staring open. They believe it. Partly as well because I introduce it by saying, I was in, this took 8 years out of my life, kind of lying. I've been in prison for it. And they just they don't know what to do. they're just like, I've done another one in St Ives. We had a comedian on with us who was quite popular, so a load of young people had come to see this comedian, and he was on last, and I was on before him. And I just finished that story, and you could just like, you could feel the awkwardness in the crowd, and this girl next to her mate on the front row just went, I think he killed his dad. And when I get reactions like that, I just play up to it. I hated them anyway, that type of stuff, but it is purely fiction.
Think about it, it must be like, sorry, but in terms of like, if you're in a band, you can say you play a particularly brilliant set, and one song, really, you can see the effect it has on people. And it's art then, isn't it? Yeah. It makes them think, it makes them feel, it makes them like, that's exactly the same with your storytelling, isn't it? Because it's putting people out of their comfort zone and really physically moving them. And obviously emotionally moving them as well. Like, and it's funny, or it's sad, or it's just sheer like, what the fuck have I just heard there?
Yeah. That was the aim really with setting up the nights we do. We didn't want to do just regular band nights where you go for 3 hours and stand up and watch some lads with guitars and that. So we put the spoken word aspect in, and we found that it was the most popular. People were going away talking about it, and lots of people. We wanted that moment during a gig where people are just like what you just said. What have I just watched? And when they get home later, just saying to the partner who wasn't at the gig, well, you won't believe what I've just seen today. Sometimes it's me doing that, other times it's the other writers, but we want a bit of a bizarre act on, you know what I mean? That's not run of the mill. It's proven quite popular. I think because we give it equal value. Sometimes you see gigs and just on the bottom it's got plus such and such with some spoken word. It's like a token gesture. But we're like, nah, it's as equal as a band, really.
How'd you get into something like spoken word? Because it's not like... Bands is pretty typical, isn't it? You know, teenage, like you were in a band, weren't you?
Yeah.
When you're in your teens.
Thanks for bringing that one
Students,
up.
you know, like how do you get into the spoken word? Start off. Are you a writer at first, experiment, and then you think, well, I'm going to start telling this live?
It wasn't planned that way, but that's what happened. I often hung on the coattails of much more talented people than me. A lot of my mates were in bands, they were writers, they made films, and I just liked being around them. It was dead interesting. But never for 1 minute really thought I could do that. Writing-wise, I read Trainspotting when I was 14, and that was the first time. It was obviously written in his local dialect, and I thought, oh, I didn't realise you could do that. I could do that. Obviously, I didn't think I could write another Trainspotting, but I just thought I could tell a story like that in my own lingo. But then it took me another 10 years to actually do it. Reading fanzines, mainly Everton, When Skies Are Grey fanzine, and people they'd just send a story in about a couple of days they'd spent at a European match, and I thought, I could do that. But again, it took me years to actually do it. And just done it to... amuse me mates, really. I think I went to an actual writing group when I was 26. What had happened at the time, I was in rehab, and I'd stopped drinking, and I didn't particularly enjoy the experience, but I knew I had to stay and do it. But whenever there was an out, like some sessional workers would come round and say, who wants to come to yoga or acupuncture? And I'd go, I'll come. Not because I was particularly interested in all that. I just wanted to get out of group therapy. So they took me to a place in town, and I'd done some yoga. And for the yoga, I had a T-shirt on with my favourite band at the time, which was Shach. So it's all like symmetry. This is how it all worked out. And the guy who managed the place went, oh, Shach, I like them. I used to be into the Pale Fountains. So I thought... I like it here, it's all right here. And they told me what else they did, and they said, we do writing. It's like, I'm not really into writing. Like, he said, well, just come anyway. And I think I spent 2 or 3 weeks going once a week. And it kind of smashed my very naive, judgmental view. I thought it's just going to be full of old, boring people writing about their pets and that. Oh, I'm not sitting there for 2 hours. But I went. It wasn't like that at all. And I liked it. But on week 3 or 4, they said to me, you're going to come here, you have to actually write something. Like, oh shit, yeah, okay. I'll come next week with some writing. Then done the classic thing that I do all the time. Didn't do anything. Got to midnight on the Tuesday. Oh, shit, got to be in tomorrow. Scribbled something down. Basically just the story of a man going on a bit of a bender in Liverpool. And I brought it in and I read it. It's the first time I'd ever read anything out. And they liked it. And I liked, my ego liked that they liked it. I'll try another one next week. And that's kind of how it started. There was no plan to perform or start my own spoken word nights or anything like that at that point.
But just started out as a sky from having to sit there in like group
Basically,
therapy.
That's all it was, yeah.
So did Royce come straight away then? Or is he someone you've worked on over time?
He only came when we started doing the Violette thing.
Yeah.
I'd kind of, this group I was going to put together a collection. And at the time, I think I'd been sober for less than a year and was kind of still a little bit embarrassed about the situation I'd landed up in. So when the book got put together and one of the creators said, what name do you want in? And I thought, oh, I'm not putting my own name in. People will know I've been in rehab and all this. And no idea why. Maybe some kind of something subliminal on me. I just went, just put Roy in. And Roy was born there and then. But what didn't properly formulate till the Violette years later on, what he was about really.
What book's that, sorry?
It was a book, it was just a book of stories and poems, a collection by people in recovery. And it come out in like 2009 or something. I think I've got one at home actually. It was just by a project called the Spider Project, which it's based over in Wirral now. So that was the first time I'd done something and had something tangible in my hand to go, I've done that. Yeah, just a couple of stories, but that's where I kind of got, I've been saying I'm going to do this for years. I've finally done it. Carry on with it now and see where it goes. That's all I'm doing. Literally making it up as I go along.
On any author's doing that though, do you know what I mean? That's fiction, isn't it?
Yeah.
Best way though, isn't it? So do you know, when you say you've got a gig coming up, like, do you allocate time to sit down and write, or are you one of them who just collects things as you go and is inspired by like your surroundings and stuff?
Bit of both, yeah. A bit of both. Make a lot of notes. But I do like to just say, right, tonight. I know a lot of creative people, musicians and that, are like, it doesn't work like that, but I actually do just go, right, 4 hours tonight, I'm going to sit with a pen and paper and just see what happens. It tends to work out all right.
That's a real talent,
I'm
that though,
sticking with that method for now.
That's a real talent, to just be able to sit down and just be in the zone. Boom.
Turn the tap on.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, sometimes it's not like that. Sometimes I just stare at a piece of paper until my eyes bleed. You know what I mean? Like, oh, it's not happening tonight. But then, as daft as this sounds, like the best way to write is actually write. Just don't stare at paper. Just write. Sometimes I write unconscious nonsense, and after a few pages, one sentence will jump out, and I'll go, right, scrap all that. I'll go with that. And sometimes the results aren't great, but other times I'm there for 5 or 6 hours. Got a lot of stuff that I think is really good stuff, but I couldn't perform them at my gigs because not much happens. The performance aspect of it, something's got to happen. You've got to draw people
There's got to be the fight at the end, or the comic twist, or
With print, my stuff's better performed, I think. But I've got other stuff that's better printed.
Have you, apart from that compilation, are you going to do your own books of short stories or something?
I'd like to, and I've got enough now to do a collection of short stories. Just need to work out how to do it, how to release it, who's going to release it. That's it really. For now.
Would you not self-publish it?
Yeah. There's that option. I know a few people who've done that. Yeah, a couple of offers and that, but I'm not in no rush really. It's not high on my list of priorities really. I know people who do it for a living, and they have to get books out and they have to sell them and they have to gig and all that. It's a bit of a luxury for me because I don't have to do that at the moment. You never know.
There's an interesting guy who's the main focal point of A to B.
Yeah.
called Brian.
Brian.
Is he based on someone real that you know then?
Brian is, yeah. Brian, like you were talking about David Brent being an amalgamation of lots of people. If you live in Liverpool, you know Brian. You know Brian is.
Well, you were describing, I was thinking, I actually know this guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Brian is what was that old thing they used to say? Oh, that's like urban myth. In London, you're never more than like 10 metres away from a rodent. Or in Liverpool, you're never far from a Brian. Ever. And the guy he was based on, he will definitely not be getting named here. I had an experience with him on the first Christmas I spent sober. I went to the Royal Oak on Walton Road on Boxing Day, and Everton were playing Man United. I was just watching the match, and I was all right at that point. Lime and soda, watching the game, chatting with everyone. And he was exactly as Brian is. He was loud, he was brash, he was aggressive, he was edgy, man. It was difficult to be around, like, and he just, on the sly, he just went to me, "What's it like?" and kind of nodded in my direction. I didn't have a clue what he was going on about. I thought he meant me drink lime and soda. Thought he might have been trying to take the piss. I went, "All right, it's a bit fizzy, like, but it's all right." He went, "No, your new life. What's it like?" And I had this brief moment where his whole guard just dropped, and it was like he was letting me into his little secret world. And I went, "It's great. I prefer it. It's brilliant." And then he said to me, and he changed physically. He changed into, like, honestly, it sounds cheesy, like a little kid. And he went, "So, can you actually have conversations with people now?" I went, "Yeah, of course I can." And then Everton hit the post and everyone started cheering, and he snapped out of it. He just completely snapped out of it. And as the game was going on, he kept looking at me as if to go, "Don't ever tell anyone. I've just got vulnerable with you." And although it was only a few seconds, I just thought, he's suffering him.
Yeah.
He's got all this money and he's got all this notoriety and flash car outside and there's £500. He's suffering. And there was a moment where he knew that I knew he was suffering. But when Everton hit the post, he just snapped out of it. And I just thought, yeah.
But there was a window.
Yeah. I'm on to you.
There was a window into Brian's world.
Yeah, I felt for him. So I knew him from the area and of people like him, and I tended to just avoid them. Wherever they went, there was just madness. And in that moment, I just seen him completely differently. And since then, kind of seen lots of people like that who've just got this real front on how they present themselves to the world. But we're all human beings, aren't we? We've got our own shortcomings, anxieties, frailties, whatever you want to call them. If you don't show them, like, or you haven't got an outlet for them, you're going to implode or explode. And a lot of these people, this guy and people like him, they do. They end up in prison, or they end up, like, in psychiatric units, or because their whole thing is just say nothing to no one about anything, how feelings wise, like.
Yeah. I feel like years ago though, and this might just be the difference in the circles that I mix in now, but I feel like years ago it was almost like, not fashionable, but it was like, it was seen as a thing to look up to people with that bravado and that boisterousness, you know. Yeah. Whereas now I feel like it's more fashionable to be vulnerable.
How do you mean fashionable?
Like, you know, there's
on Twitter, do you mean?
No, not particularly on Twitter. I've just been in general, just a guy who opens up now, it's like, fucking hell, that's off to him, you know what I mean?
Oh, I get
you know,
it.
Who shows that side, the Brian wasn't willing to show, and he quickly realised that he's opened that window, and tried to cover it up as it was the thing to be ashamed of. I think now it's a thing to be proud of and to be applauded. It's become.
I think it's changing. Whether or not it still would be for someone like Brian, who's from Kirkdale, and I'm not sure he would be there yet, where he would say it would be something that would be cool. But generally, for men, it's getting more acceptable, isn't it?
Definitely.
Well, it definitely couldn't be any less acceptable.
Yeah.
But that's changing, like.
Yeah, it's not frowned upon now to open up or just have an outlet for your feelings and emotions, really, like, because people are starting to see evidence of what happens when you don't. We probably all know people, you know, who have suffered mentally, who might have personal experience, or you know, people end their own lives, don't they, over it? Like,
I sort of thought it was interesting when like Aaron Lennon had that. We basically had a bit of a breakdown, and he didn't. I don't think he was going to do himself in, but he was certainly in a bad way. And just the way football reacted just proved to me that things have changed. Tangibly now. And now he's back doing his thing. He's probably gone through a process, and he might not be 100% now, but he's a lot better than he was. And it's just like, for someone who's got living the dream, as you would imagine, professional football, the lifestyle they have, for him to publicly suffer it and then talk about it, and then to be rehabilitated, if you like, it was kind of like, it can happen to anyone.
Well, there's more recently, there's Lee Griffith as well, isn't there? Who's just come back now for Celtic. Yeah, and it's great that we're in a world now that's so accepting and so
not just artists
willing to help,
because artists have often been willing to talk about it, haven't they? Musicians and actors, but
and artists have always been sort of troubled in a way. A lot of the most creative ones, anyway, haven't they? Yeah, it's good. It's good that we're in that type of world.
But there's like empathy as well in the stories, because obviously Brian, you get that little, like, that brief moment, and then even with, is it Roy's dad in Whose Jacket's That Coat?
No, it's just
the characters that Roy's telling. Sorry, there's a point where he goes, imagine what his childhood was like.
Yeah,
and we were talking before we started recording. We were talking about Billy Moore, who was obviously and he was our guest recently, and he even says about his own dad, doesn't he?
Yeah,
he was like, as much of a bastard as he was to him, his childhood mustn't have been a barrel of laughs either to make him into what he was.
Yeah,
so,
that's like, that's just seeing something, because it's similar with me and my dad. So when I stopped drinking, so my dad, he won't listen to this, he doesn't know what the internet is, so I'm okay talking. He's a compulsive gambler and an alcoholic. He's a binge drinking alcoholic, so he doesn't drink all the time. But when he does, he goes mental. And so when that happened to me, I just thought, this is all his fault. This is all his fault, this. Because it was easy to blame someone else for it. And then, after spending a few years sober, I started viewing him really differently. From being angry with him and thinking, you've done fuck all for me. I started to think about, like, what you've just said, because his parents died before I was born. I just thought, what? I don't know that side of the family. What's he been through? And not that it's not an excuse. A lot of people go through a lot of traumatic stuff and don't end up harming others. But your upbringing shapes who you are, doesn't it, really? And now my expectations have just changed around it. And I just see my dad as, he done his best. He only knew what he knew.
Yeah.
He didn't know how to be a dad. He had no clue. He'd done his best. We have a different relationship now. He lives round the corner from me. And on, I think it was Father's Day last year, I woke up. I must have got up at about 10 o'clock. I was having a lie-in and I thought, I'm going to ring my dad. Because we don't ring each other unless someone's died. That's the only time I get a call off my dad. And I said to him, do you want to come down to cafe for your breakfast? And him being him completely missed the point. I went, I've already had my breakfast. It's nothing to do with. I went, all right, Sam. So I felt all like deflated and all that. He still doesn't get it. And then this year there was a couple of deaths. There was my cousin died, who was only 47. That was through alcohol. And a good friend of mine died, which was nothing to do with addiction or alcoholism. And my girlfriend said to me, she's got a fractious relationship with her dad too. She said, why don't we both agree now to make more of an effort with our dads and just not really have any expectation of it? Just, it is what it is. So I went, all right. And I rang my dad that day. We don't, because what happens with me and my dad, there's white elephants in the room, like massive ones. So in the past, I've invited them round to my house and gone, as he goes, yeah, I'll be round in 5 minutes. And in that 5 minutes, I just spend that 5 minutes going, don't talk about the footy, don't talk about the footy, don't talk. Then I open the door and go, see the match. And it's not happening then. But I just rang him up and said, listen, Dad, people are dying this year. You're nearly 70. You could be next. Do you think we should start like connecting a bit more? And he was completely freaked out. He went, yeah, go ahead then. Go on. And that was that. So I just started to ring him. But I've still got to be pushed. My girlfriend says it to me. Do you think you better ring your dad? I'm like, no. And I think you had. And she kind of makes me do it, which I'm glad for, really. After the first few phone calls, he's just completely, yeah, it's me, what? That kind of thing. But now he's just got used to the fact that his son is ringing him to see how he is. And he's buzzing. He's like, all right, lad, how's it going? Because we've never had that. We've just never had that. There's times when he was out of my life for years. And he's gone full circle now. And he started to understand. I'm just ringing him to check in and connect with him. And that's that.
Yeah,
I don't expect anything.
You don't want anything.
No. When I was a kid, I did. And then as an adult, I rang him to give him abuse. Or to tell him someone's died, and that was it. I just ring him now. How's it going? What are you up to? I'll catch you through the week. Doesn't very rarely last over 60 seconds, but that's all right. That'll do me for now. Like,
there's a lot to be said for that, though, isn't it? Even just that surface level connection.
Yeah,
it's better than none, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's even the fact that you've gone to the trouble to pick up the phone and just shoot the breeze for 5 minutes shows.
Yeah.
Without being corny, like the caring, it's that he's been on your mind and you've made the effort.
Yeah, and he can sense that, can't he?
Exactly.
Of course, yeah.
And it probably makes you feel better as well.
Yeah.
There's a turning point, isn't it? I think with everybody, when your parents will sort of be used to you ringing them for something. How much do you want? Don't even say hello. How much do you want? But then there's a turning point, isn't there, when you do just ring for nothing, just to say, how's it going? Do you want to go for a coffee? It's great, isn't it? And then you really start building, an adult relationship with you, rather than a sort of father-son or mother-son relationship. You just start building a relationship, as an adult, and it's a wonderful thing.
It's a massive cliche, but it's true for me, and I'm sure it's true for other people. It is still a shock when you realise your parents aren't perfect, and you get to the point where you go, oh, they don't know everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though obviously it makes no sense that they would be perfect or would know everything, but then for a child you're sort of conditioned to believe that's the case, aren't you? Because they're your protectors from the early. If you're fortunate enough to have parents who are around and who at least fulfil that role, your protectors, your guardians, the ones you go to for advice and what have you.
But what they say is gospel, is that sort of period where you're in school and the teacher's telling you something to the contrary of what your dad said, and you're like, it's not what my dad said.
But as you say as well, it's like, I mean, I don't have kids. It does scare me shitless, because how can you ever be prepared for that? And you can be to different extents. You can be less prepared, some dads are, and more like you can read all the books in the world and go on courses and stuff. But ultimately, once it just happens, it happens, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's like everyone, because I've been in recovery for a while, and we were talking about the previous guest you've had on, and how open he was and all that, and I meet a lot of people like that, and I also meet a lot of people who are kind of new to it and just go, nah, my childhood was fine, there's no issues with me, everything's great. And what they mean there was like, I wasn't abused, I didn't go without. But that doesn't mean it's perfect. We all have our story, don't we? And kind of like the unwritten rules in your family. And I think in like working class areas, and I'm generalising, but mostly you don't tell anyone what goes on inside this house.
Yeah.
You don't talk about any of that. Even if it's not drastic, you know what I mean? It might just be like, you get messages, don't you, from... You're impressionable, when you're a kid, you make everything your fault kind of thing. So a kid who's constantly like comes down and his dad's been at work and his mum says, leave your dad alone, he's tired. If that continues, that kid's going to get the message, my dad doesn't want to know. And it's not like that at all, but that's the mistaken belief the kid grows up with, and then tries to get his dad's attention in other ways that really... to the detriment, really. Yeah.
So do you know with Roy then? Do you feel like is the character you're building and the story you're telling, does it all make sense? Like, could, for example, a TV show or a film be made and everything makes sense, or is it completely spontaneous, brand new slate?
There's a couple of stories I've thought that you could make a little, some kind of visual thing about that. But no, I'd like to say I had a big grand plan that everything's going to fall into place, but and it will. It just hasn't yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just hasn't yet.
If you're listening to Netflix,
does the timeline make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, man. I think like Roy is a bit like, well, he's nothing like him. I was going to say parallels with Homer Simpson, because there's a bit of him in all of us. Oh, they're not similar characters, but I think we can all hide it. As much as we wouldn't like to, we can go, yeah, I do that sometimes, or I'm a bit like that. But in my case, it's like Jez off Peep Show. I watch that programme and just think, oh man, I'm like Jez, fucking hell, I don't believe it. Not all the time, but just certain bits I go, oh, for fuck's sake, Jez.
Who'd play Roy?
Good question, man. I don't know. Not thought about that.
Would you not play? Nah. Have you tried acting or anything like that? Or?
No, no.
I mean, how different would it be? I'm only saying, but how different would it be from just doing what you do on the stage anyway? Do you know what I mean?
Suppose so, yeah. I mean, the thing with Roy, because he's so particular, you'd have to have someone real. You couldn't have someone with a daft accent or with the wrong. It'd have to be really, really right, the details, or it just wouldn't work. Would it?
And people, the Scouse accent's a difficult one, because like, have you seen? You've probably seen it years ago, but if you get a chance, go back and watch 51st State just for Robert Carlyle's Scouse accent.
Oh, I can remember.
Oh my fucking god!
Yeah.
It is how like the people who made it, because the Scouse is in it, like Ricky Tomlinson's in it.
Yeah.
They're not sitting there going, mate, this isn't working. Yeah. Like, it's that bad.
I don't think I've heard anyone who isn't from here get the accent right. Yeah. I'm sure there's someone who's done it. I know this is the other way around. You know, Ian Hart, who's from Liverpool. Something he was in, he had to do a Belfast accent. And he got it that spot on that the local said to him, not only did you get it, you got the West Belfast accent. Yeah. Which must be like Liverpool's north and south ends. The accent's slightly different, isn't it?
Yes, so the pronunciation of certain words. Yeah. Well, like Stephen Graham, you know, proper Scouser, but amazing at doing Cockney accents. He's done Al Capone as well, hasn't he?
He's tremendously talented. It bears my head out though when you see stuff like that, and it's in Liverpool. It's set in Liverpool, and they don't cast a Scouser for the main role.
Like as if one doesn't exist, like a talented. Yeah. There's no.
There's not a shortage of them.
We won't even bother. Yeah.
And they'll have someone on it, and like sometimes they have a good go, but it's never going to be. Or maybe to be honest, though, maybe we're thinking about quite an esoteric thing, isn't it? Because they're making TV for like the whole country in Europe. There's only like 400,000 of us who are going to moan about it.
Small percentage, so maybe they just swallow that and they aren't bothered.
They don't notice that it's not.
They just cast someone who's a good actor and got the right look. Yeah. But it'd be great if they could actually cast Scousers, do you know what I mean?
It was good what like Shane Meadows was doing, where he was just finding locals who looked right and sounded right, and then coaxing them, nudging them into the right way of acting.
Definitely, like Paddy Considine.
That's why his films are really good and authentic and believable.
Yeah, and like the guy who made Shooters.
Yeah.
They weren't, none of them were even actors.
Yeah.
It was more like improvisation, wasn't it? Like, I want you to do this, but do it in your own way.
Yeah.
And then that authenticity really comes across.
Yeah. I imagine there was no script for that at all. Like, you just went, what would you do and say in that situation? Yeah. And that's why it was so realistic.
Yeah, they would have had the story, wouldn't they, in the narrative, what happened. But script-wise, you're right. I don't think there's like Desi Bayliss who sat there learning his lines on.
No.
What? Did he ever make any more films after Shooters?
He did. I think he made a couple, but like...
Was in a couple of TV shows with Ray Winston, I think.
He tried, he was in something with Ray Winston, I think he tried to make a go of it, but just didn't really pan out. But that's still, like, that's fucking groundbreaking, that film. I genuinely believe it. Like, not being made in 2001, and like, in terms of realism, maybe it's just because it's more realistic for us, because of the accents and stuff like that, and some of the words they use at the time. Yeah. Like, there's a bit where he goes, He goes, them Manx in that fucking Jag Bentley again. Like, nobody else would, nobody would write that down. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, there's certain bits like that, and my favourite film, or one of them, is a film called Le Haine, which is set brilliant. In Paris. Yeah. I love it, but I don't understand French or read the subtitles. But I met this French guy once in the Jacaranda, and I was talking to him about it. That was my favourite film, and he said, to me, "You'll miss this because you're only doing the translation through the subtitles." He said, "But there's certain bits and words in it that are just so authentic that it's the real deal. You'll lose translation through the subtitles, but that must be like their version of Shooters. It was just so real. Well, it's been proved to be real because the thing that happened in Le Haine keeps happening in France, in Paris, the riots with the police and all that, and the yellow vests recently. Yeah, but those nuances where it's just like you can't teach that kind of stuff, you can't act it. That's just real. That was a brilliant film. That.
I think there's definitely going to be some Roy feature down the line. You know,
who knows?
I think it could definitely could translate to like a series or something.
Well, the first time, just recently, so I've been doing it, writing and performing for a couple of years, and getting a regular kind of following, and always wanting to write new stuff, because it's different with music. Your favourite band could play the same set, and you'd just love it. But I think people would stop coming to watch me if I just do the same stories all the time. So I always like to write new stuff. And then I've just kind of fell into the habit of doing half an hour, maybe one old one, a new one. And then just recently I thought, I need to do a show. I need to do something that's kind of tightened up with a theme and some... I wasn't going like the full hit. I didn't want lights and pyrotechnics and all that, but something else that added to the show. And we did it. I did it with... Toria Garbutt, and we did this show called It's an Inside Job, and the show lasted an hour, and we kind of alternated on stage, and so she's a poet, and all her poems were on the theme It's an Inside Job, and so were my stories, and the venue worked really well, the night worked, it sold out, and that was so, when we done that I thought, okay, maybe start getting a bit more serious about it. Because up to now, it's just been like a hobby that I enjoy and other people enjoy. But after that, I thought, and I've just been to Edinburgh the weekend as well, and it was fucking shit.
Was it?
Well, Edinburgh's great and the stuff that was going on. Yeah. But you know, the shows that were on.
Yeah. Did you go and see spoken word there?
I did. I seen, it was the book fest I was at. So there was bits of stuff on, and Toria was performing at it, and she said to me, our show was better than anything. And she's not really egotistical, she can just say that. I thought it was, you know. It was, and this kind of stuff's like Arts Council funded and all that, and just a bit rubbish, a lot of it.
I think things sometimes become that big, and it's just the inevitable, you know, commercialisation. Yeah. And then, you know, just not, you lose the raw elements of you know, Roy stories. You just don't really get it when something becomes that big anymore. No.
I got offered a gig recently, and it was kind of a gig. It's not something I'd really do. It was kind of like a favour for a mate, and it was to open up for this show. I was like, yeah, all right, sound. It's not going to... Fair enough, I'll do it. And so the event organiser just said, oh, can we have a photo and a bio and all that? And I sent her this bio. I just make the bio up every time. And I put something in it like Roy kind of survives on Iranian drugs and French cheese, and she just freaked out. She was just like, we can't put that in. We can't. And so I was just about to say, fuck it then, I'm not doing the gig. And I went, okay, just change it to whatever you want, but I'm going to completely freak them out at this gig. Taking me gas mask with me. I'm just going to do the most mental story and then just get off. And it's like a big thing. It's a themed night based on something. And she's like, oh, we've sold 600 tickets. I was like, great. There'll probably only be about 300 of them left when the main act comes on.
It's quite a punk ethos, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where you go into like certain place and it's almost like, not attritional, because you're not going there to like, I don't know, actually aggressively engage people, but you're going there to what we said earlier, to make them like feel something, aren't you?
Yeah,
so what the
absolutely.
That, yeah? So that's a perfect example, especially if it's a sucker punch where they're not really know what to expect. Because if people come to Violette, is it Violette or Violette?
Violette.
They, by now, the word's out, isn't it? So they might have an idea, or most people might have an idea about what to expect, to an extent.
Yeah. But the stories are so different, they probably don't, like, they probably, when Roy gets up, I presume the audience now, who've listened to a few or have been to see you, they don't know whether they're going to laugh, cry, be shocked.
Yeah, that's true.
And you get weird reactions to, in different places, like people laughing at bits that I've not put in there for comedy purposes or anything. They just laugh at them, and I'm reading out, carrying on reading, but my head's going, what are they laughing at? And then there's other bits that are just like really brutal, and the silence becomes a bit deafening, or people laugh nervously and that. I quite like that. I like that aspect of it. Yeah.
You know, you were saying before about when you like St. Ives, for example.
Yeah.
Talk about subtitles, like when you're talking about the pits or the viewing, or stuff that's very much like North Liverpool. Do you have to like tailor that a little bit, or do you just do it as you do it anywhere?
I thought about that in the beginning, because all my first few gigs were all around Liverpool, and then I get offered a couple of spots around, and I thought, no one's going to get this. No one's going to get me talking about County Road in Hull. But they do. I think automatically in their head, they just switch it to their version of County Road. And also, like, I remembered back reading Train Spotting, and I didn't know Edinburgh, but I felt like I did. I did reading it. So I've never really adapted anything down there, and people just they can connect with it that way, I think.
It's interesting that, I suppose, that again, that's what makes it raw, isn't it? Like, when you first said before, it's like Scouse humour, but, and obviously I find it very funny, some of the stories, and find them very touching, some of them. But when you initially said, like, you've played in St. Ives and even Manchester as well, especially given the tribalism that exists between the two cities, it's good. It's good, really good that it's gone down well there. Yeah.
It's funny though, because when you said before about when skies are grey, I totally knew where you were coming from.
That was back in the day, wasn't it?
Even some of the stories were like so. Sometimes they were, they wouldn't say it, but a bit whimsical or just a bit pointless. But there was this one that stands out, and it still makes me laugh to this day. The expression of it. He was talking about, he was playing footy, and this fella come on his bike to watch the match, right? Or he's cycling past and he's just stopped to watch the match. And someone, the ball came to this lad, and he said, I wrapped my size 8 through it. I absolutely it was the cleanest connection I've ever made. But it was way off target, and the ball flew like an exocet, hit this fella in the head. And he said he hit the deck like a wet cozzy, which still has me in stitches, and rode off into the sunset. And I remember that as much as I'll probably remember stuff I've read in like A-level English, because it's just the power of some. Maybe it's a Scouse thing as well, because it's like like a wet cozzy. You can imagine like.
It's just relatable as well.
Getting straight back on his bike and just getting off. But when Skies Are Grey has got like, I'm not sure how many people listening will be able to relate to this, but
is that still going now?
It's still going digitally. The actual, I think I'm right in saying this. Don't know if you.
Yeah, it's like an internet thing now. Yeah, it's subscription.
Digitally, so you can just flick through it if you like, like say a time subscription type thing.
Okay.
But they don't print it anymore. But they've had some brilliant writing over the years. Like, did you ever write anything?
I've sent some stuff in. Sent a couple of Roy stories in, I think, over the past couple of years.
So was Roy a Blue then?
I don't
was he not that into footy?
Roy's just one of them who he just attaches himself to anything. Like, if you can go and show off, he'll be there. The national, all that. You know what I mean? If you can go and just show people how much money you've got, he'll do it. So I suppose he's an Evertonian who doesn't really care about the 90 minutes that happened there. Mind you, so am I these days.
It's a self-defence mechanism most of the time, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because he meets Brian at the kids' footy, doesn't
he? Yeah. Yeah, that's in that A to B story, yeah. That one, I've done one I haven't read out yet, where Brian gets a bit vulnerable, but I'm not sure. I'm just thinking, I don't know whether this is believable. I suppose there's only one way to find out, isn't it? Because that's what I use a lot of, especially the Violette gigs. Because I know people at that, particularly my mates, will tell me, "Oh shite, that's just, what are you doing? Where are you going with that?" And I'd rather have that than, you know, someone just going, "Oh God, this is so gritty, it's so believable." It's like, that's not, mate. So it's kind of like a test audience there. And if they go down all right there, I think, yeah, I'll stick with this. I'll work on it a bit. But at the same time, they will tell me, my mates and my girlfriend have said to me, "Don't know, you've lost me with that one, like, can that?"
That's the perfect feedback, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it might not be the most, you know, when you hear it, it's like, fucking hell, all right. But you need it, don't you?
Yeah,
in
definitely.
Any creative pursuit.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise, you just can disappear up your own arse. And...
Yeah.
So is the Violette? I've not listened to or seen, you know, the other performers. Is it all similar type of stuff?
No, it's pretty varied, really. So we have 4 acts on. Well, 4 acts who go on the bill. I don't go on the posters or anything, but I always get up and do half an hour at the Violette, and we try to have maybe a solo act, a band, a poet, a storyteller, and it's just kind of like, well, basically what it was I got fed up of going to the same kind of nights where you stood up for 3 or 4 hours and watching bands who were just like out of tune and you can't hear the vocals and all that. So when I got the opportunity to do this, and with Matt who's helped me do it, he said, let's do something different. Like, he was going for like a cabaret aspect thing, which I quite liked. Okay, let's have a compare. Like
a variety show type thing?
Let's have a compare and let's do half an hour each act, no headline. And let's just see how that goes. Let's vary the acts and let's see how it goes. And we moved around venues. So we had the Violette label, which and Michael Ed was attached, and obviously he was successful with what he was doing. So maybe naively, I was like, yeah, sound. Then we'll just sell loads of tickets, and that just didn't happen. We used to sell 20 tickets, 30 tickets if we were lucky. And I ended up booking this songwriter, a fella called Carwyn Ellis, who's one of my favourites. He lives down in Cardiff. He's got his own band called Colour Armour. He plays keyboards for Chrissy Hynde as well, and he's in Edwin Collins' band.
Oh, wow.
Got him up, and about 10 people turned up, and I was just really embarrassed.
Oh, you're mortified.
And I thought after that, it was November, it was down at Kitchen Street, it was freezing, it was just like, oh man.
Yeah.
And I got mates who were promoters, and they struggle to get signed bands on through booking agents. They'd struggle to get anyone through the door at weekends. I just thought, this isn't all it's cracked up to be. I was going to pack it in, and then completely out the blue, we done a gig with, it was in the Magnet, we were still moving venues at the time. It was in the Magnet, we had Professor Yaffle on, who were a local band. We had Steve Pilgrim, plays drums for Paul Weller. He was doing his own little acoustic thing. Lynn Sangster, who's like well known in Liverpool for being in bands, and Jegsy Dodd kind of came out of semi-retirement, and we just got it. It was full. It was full, and we could pay the bands handsomely and that. And I was like, yeah, I could get used to this. This was great, and it's just been like that ever since. And then we've got a permanent venue now, and I think people just like regularity, variation between acts, and of course quality. So people I talk to at the gig, because I'm always interested, because we don't have any posters up in town, we don't really get much press or anything. I was like, how come you're here? And they go, oh, we've just heard about it. Said, which band are you here to see? They go, we've never heard of any of them. We just come because we've heard it's a good night out. Made it difficult for ourselves because we do it on a Tuesday night. Who wants to go out on a Tuesday? Like, usually just before payday. Tuesdays, Liverpool have been playing a lot of Champions League games. Yeah. It's like we've made it hard, but we've got to the point now where we just sell out every gig. And the bands who come and play say that was a really great experience, that. And a lot of young bands in Liverpool who we put on, when I say to them, like, email us your invoice and that, a lot of them are like, what? Go, yeah, so we can pay your fee. They're like, what? You're paying us? Shit. And that was one of the things I've got a bit of a gripe about, like just young bands starting out, working hard and not getting paid. Getting taken advantage of and having to actually pay to play. You know, they have to fork out for a van and all that. And, pay the artist, like, that's my rule. Yeah.
It's a great concept you've got going there. Can you put your finger on what turned you from playing to 10 people then to selling out every gig?
No.
Because you could have sweared after that night.
Yeah. I think a lot of it was at that gig at the Magnet. Those 4 acts are named, all really bought into it and made an effort to get people down. Because still now, even though we sell out all the time, when I'm kind of offering people the gig, I say to them, you know, we're kind of all in this together. We don't put any money in and we don't take any out. What we get is all yours. So if no one comes, you don't get any money. So if we all make an effort, it will happen, and that's what everyone does now.
That's the beauty of a variety show as well, and I suppose you've got, you know, several different people promoting as opposed to just one.
Exactly.
Different audiences as well, different fan base. And what is it with the tickets as well? Because you can do a scheme like a suspended ticket, can't you, where you buy. So go on, you explain.
Yeah, I think it's come from. It's an Italian thing about coffees and that, but I first heard of it in the Brink in Liverpool, where they would say to their customers, if you want to buy yourself a coffee and throw an extra £2 in, that'll pay for a coffee for someone who hasn't got the money to get one. We thought, let's have a go with gigs, because people shouldn't be excluded from like art because they're skint. So we tried it, and the response was just overwhelming. So our regulars, they would buy their couple of tickets and they'd buy 2 suspended ones. So we've got every month now, like that happens all the time. That's contributed to the gig selling out too. I mean, everyone's a winner with that. So people are doing something good.
Yeah.
People who wouldn't normally get the chance get to go. More money in the coffers for the bands to share out. So people have just really bought into that, but I'm still always overwhelmed by people's generosity with it, because it's every month and a lot of it's the same people. A lot of people who don't live anywhere near Liverpool, like just throwing £20 in the kitty.
It's like paying it forward in a way, and it's amazing. That really
and
is.
The way it works is there's no conditions on it. We don't say, right, email us and tell us why we just go, they're on the website, if you need them, take them.
I was going to say, so how does word get around about it then? How do people who are turning up and benefiting from the suspended ticket, how do you promote it?
Just mainly via social media. They go, but if they don't, if it's getting to like 2 weeks to gig time and there's still like 20 suspended tickets left, through me day job, I know a lot of community groups and recovery groups, and I'll just give them a bell, say, look, get some of your guys down here, and it's the kind of gig that's safe for all that. Yeah, it's a sat down thing. There's candles and incense burning and all. It's like being in your living room, because that was the thing about what I was saying earlier on. It was set up for a load of reasons. The most selfish one was, what kind of gig would I like to go to? And I thought, well, I want to sit down with some like nice mellow music on and some decent people who are going to concentrate, because talking at gigs is a pet hate of mine. Oh man.
Phone's got to be even
slightly ahead of phones. Don't get him started, but I totally agree. Like, let's film it and talk loudly to each other while we're doing it.
Yeah. We've got a compare at the Violette gigs, and she just lays the law down, and she can be quite frightening. So everyone just obeys her. Plus, the venue's got a soundproof bar, and she just kind of says, if you want to talk, go through there. Don't talk in here, and no one does. So the bands are always like, wow, there wasn't a sound while we were on. We were like, I know, that's kind of the way it's all fell into place.
It's a brilliant venue, isn't it?
It's
Everyone's
great.
in the moment.
It's really good.
Coldplay recorded there, Arctic Monkeys
Yeah,
recorded
had
there.
some big acts.
And it's soundproof because it was like it's a studio as well, isn't it?
That got turned into the bar, yeah, I like it. Just put all the couches out.
Yeah.
Staff are great, and lights, everything's great about it. That's why we settled there. It was just perfect for what we do.
It's interesting what you said there, because we always, not comparing them in any way, but we always say about this podcast, you could call it self-indulgent, because we just wanted to speak to people we'd find interesting and hear their stories. And hopefully people, like-minded people, or even just enjoy it too.
Yeah.
And it's a similar idea anyway with what you have done.
Yeah.
You just kind of like design something that you'd like and hope other people get on it as well.
Yeah, there's no it's mutually beneficial in it. It's like a lot of people say, oh, what you're doing for people is great, but I'm partly doing it for myself too. I buzz off it. I love it. It's good for me, because in me life, like connection is a key thing for me, and it just gives you. I mean, I know it's nothing special. It's just one night every 2 months, but it's a little bit of meaning and purpose for others as well. They really like coming. They look forward to it, and we enjoy it, and we'll just keep going. We'll know when to stop. It's not yet, like we're not stopping yet, but I think we will know. Could
you? I'm sure you could up the frequency of them. Have you ever been tempted to, like, you know what I mean, charge a bit more, or
do a little mini festival or something like that? 'Cause that's basically what it is, isn't it? That variety in one night.
Yeah, as it is now, like, there's no real work involved. You just kind of send a couple of emails to a couple of bands and ask, do you want to play? Yeah, sounds all right. The venue's booked. See you in 2 months. That's it. I think I'm quite bone idle, really. I wouldn't be arsed putting a festival on, like the logistics of it and all that. Yeah, it suits me fine, this.
And there's a day job as well, and you work. Is it with people who are going through, like, people who are getting clean, people who are dealing with alcohol and addiction issues?
Yeah, it's so it's people who've already come through it. So the kind of groups I work with at the moment are all already clean and sober. I work at a recovery living centre where we focus on, like, the arts, sport, culture. So they live with us. It's their home, and they get lots of help elsewhere. They go to groups, and they might get therapy or counselling or whatever. Part of what we do is to say, you've worked really hard to get clean and sober, and initially you've done it to stay alive, but now what? Where are you getting your joy from in your life? Where is your spirit getting fed? So let's get involved in stuff like, so they all came to the Everyman. I think it's a myth, really, that people in recovery need to stay away from booze. I get it dead early on. If you've just stopped drinking and you're out of detox or rehab, something, I completely understand that. But I think if you work on your internal issues, you realise that this bit of liquid in a glass or this bit of powder in a bag, it holds no power over you whatsoever. It's not the problem. It's just an inanimate object.
I'm glad you said that, because I put a beer in front of you before we started talking about this. So
it's all right.
Fucking hell.
Yeah. No. So we just want people to take part in life, really. You know, part of, I think, why I grasped a new lifestyle so quickly and early on was that I just thought, I'm fed up being closed-minded and negative. That's what I am when I drink. I'm not great company. Like, when I don't mean under the influence, I just mean when I'm in that kind of lifestyle, I'm just cynical. I see the world as I am, really. I just think the world's not a very nice place. But then the minute I started to kind of, like, practice opposites, really, you know, because the three most dangerous words for me are can't be asked. That's all I ever used to say to anything. Well, the first question would be, can you have a bevy there? And then when the answer to that was no, I can't be asked then. And I'd just kind of sit with my own head and make things up in my head and treat them as gospel. And then in recovery, I just thought, well, that hasn't worked for me. That's got me here. So I'm just going to start saying yeah to everything within reason. Like, and it worked. It worked. So that's the kind of method I use with people in recovery. A lot of other services do the hard work for us. You know, people will go through detox, then they might go through rehab, and then they come to us. So they're like already just active citizens by this time. They've been clean and sober a while, and they're ready to take part in life. And it was quite enjoyable last week watching. Brought like six or seven of them down to the Everyman for the spoken word event, and then seeing them the next day, and they were all kind of still in raptures about it. Not so much at the artist they'd seen, just how they felt that night. They felt connected, and they all said that's something we've not. That is what addiction is. It's disconnection from the world around you. And these all said for a few hours last night, we felt really connected. We didn't feel out of place. Felt like it was a sense of belonging. Have you got any more of them gigs coming up? It's like, yeah, they're all in bars. And they're like, we're not asked. It's like strength in numbers. I know when I sobered up, I just thought, well, that's it now then. Never go to the match again. Never go to a gig again. And there was a guy who was helping me. He went, you can, initially, just go with people who are like you. And trust me, you won't even be tempted. And he was pretty much right. And I don't think, can't be a coincidence this, that most of the recovery groups I went to was full of Evertonians. Oh, you've got a drink problem and a drug problem. You're a blue. Yeah, of course you are. So there was loads of people to go to the match with.
It's interesting you're talking about connection a lot. We were talking about this to Billy Moore a few weeks ago, and like there's a book, I don't know if you've heard of it, called Chasing the Scream by a guy called Johan Hari. Yeah, have you read it?
Yeah, I haven't read it. No, I've got it. I haven't read it. No.
Well, he basically says that in a different way. He says the opposite of addiction is connection.
Yeah, I've seen his TED talk where he says talking about that.
Yeah, and you know, you were mentioning before, like it's not the liquid in the glass or the substance, because like the example that he used was, you know, thousands of elderly people going to hospital every day for hip operations, and they're on morphine, which is fucking pure. Yeah. They're not coming out trying to score.
Nah. No, I'm of that belief. Like connection and belonging are the answer to most things. Actually, I know some things. You know, I'm not talking about cures. You can't cure addiction or mental illness, but those two things will really, really help you. But they're the two things when you're in early recovery from whatever it is you're recovering from that you're most resistant to. I sobered up and just thought, I don't know how to behave with people. I just had to sit on my own and watch the telly, but I knew that was not the way forward for me. So even just like, I would kind of force myself. A couple of the groups I was going to, they'd start at 7:30 and they'd finish at 9. So I would arrive at 29 minutes past 7 and leave at 1 minute past 9 without saying anything to anyone. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to kind of push myself a bit, and I'm gonna introduce myself to someone. I build it all up in my head. They're going to think I'm a dickhead. And it never ever worked out the way my fears thought they would. It's really strange because sobering up taught me. But I realised I was shy. I was like 26. I went, fucking hell, I'm shy. I couldn't believe it. Because
you never thought of yourself as that before?
I'd always thought of myself as a bit awkward, but able to blag it really well. When I think about school, I think if I wasn't a good footballer, I'd have just been the weird ginger kid. You know what I mean? Weird ginger awkward kid. Like, because I was good at football, it meant I was in with everyone, and I was a bit more like physically advanced. So school was all right for all that. And then after school, I lost interest in football, and that's where I started to realise, who am I? Like, that was my first identity crisis of hanging around with lads. So being 13, 14, and hanging around with lads who were just completely up to no good, and me thinking, I'm not like this. This is not me, this. And then going and hanging around with lads who were really sensible and had their heads screwed on. I think, these are mings, these. I can't be. I was lost at an early age, just lost. And then as I progressed, getting older into my 20s and that, this is all with hindsight. I didn't know it at the time, but and to a certain extent, we all do this anyway. But I'd just wear different masks with different people, and eventually kind of end up on my own and think, which one of them is me? And that's when I started to drink like problematically. I was really confused about who I was, and my head would chatter, and I realised that alcohol would shut that up. So I wasn't drinking for enjoyment or to socialise. I was initially, but eventually it was like, I'm using alcohol as medicine here, but didn't know it at the time, and then obviously it just kind of got out of control. But that whole, the thing I'm trying to hide from the world, now I'm all right with it. I'm all right understanding I am a bit shy sometimes, which sounds mad because I get up on stage and perform that, but that's part of combating it. Or I am. Back then I was like, like a real know-it-all. And like, you probably all know one, like the fear of a know-it-all, like, is that they get found out, that actually they don't know anything about it. The evidence of their life tells them you don't know anything, or you wouldn't be in this situation. I couldn't say the words I don't know. I had no humility, and just really was the cause of all my own problems at the time, thinking, no, this is because I've not got a dad, this is because I'm not working, this is because that girl I'm going out with is not right for me, anything other than myself. And then landing in a treatment centre where they actually said, nah, we don't want to know about him, her, this, that. They just held a big mirror up in front of my face, and I shit myself. Just like, oh no, I'm not looking at myself. Like, this is what we do here. Like, oh no.
Wow. Heavy though, isn't it?
Yeah.
That idea of like, no, stop blaming. Just because I thought you sent me a couple of links, didn't you, last week? And I was reading through them, and they were all really powerful in their own different ways and interesting. But the one where you basically talk about the nadir of the addiction and then getting into recovery was when you were saying, like, well, there was a couple of things you weren't sure, you'd been on a mad one, you had this paranoid conviction that you might have battered someone or killed someone, and then obviously the time when you were in the library as well, and you kind of like came face to face with like someone who was looking, or as you thought, keep away from that. He's a weirdo. And
that was one of them moments. Like, there was other scenarios and situations where I should have sorted myself out, really. This, compared to that library incident, those were much, much worse. They had lots of serious consequences. I could have died. I could have ended up in jail. This one was just a kid and his mum telling him to come away, but it got me. I don't know whether it was just the universe conspiring like to get me at that time, but I just thought, oh no, what am I doing? And like, when I've explained that, like with my mum and all that, and they're like, but the other bits didn't shock you into, like, no, they didn't. I just constantly moved the goalposts. I think looking back now, I always knew that my relationship with alcohol was unnatural. It wasn't like, so my girlfriend now, she comes over to mine and I get a bottle of wine for her, and it stays in my fridge like for a month. She has a glass every time she comes over, and I'm like, you fucking weirdo. And she's like, no, I'm not the weirdo. It's you and your mad alcoholic ways. And I'm just like, how can you leave that bottle in my fridge?
Surely if you open the bottle, you see it off. Yeah.
But that was like that bit with the kid in the library where I became the local weirdo. That was a moment where I'll never forget that.
And did that happen instantly? When did you see? Did you sort of sit back and go, "Whoa"?
Yeah, it had been a build up. I'd just been in complete like denial of the way my life was turning out. Drinking wasn't the problem. It certainly wasn't helping. But the problem was how I was behaving and reacting to things, and the blame really, and just irresponsible behaviour. And then of course pouring drink on that just makes you 10 times worse. But build up of stuff, and then that woman in the library saying, and I don't know whether I mentioned it in that article, but the way I was dressed that day, I had a cagoule on.
Oh no, you never said, yeah.
I had a cagoule with nothing underneath.
Right.
I think I was just losing my marbles, and I had like a ginger afro with the beard. So imagine, no wonder the woman said to the kid, like, come away from him. But my instant response in my head, was, I was going to say to the woman, who are you talking? You know, that cat. And then it just dawned on me, is this what I am now? Is this what I've become, like the local weirdo? Reality dawned on me for the first time in a long time. Even though my initial response was to be quite angry with the woman, in my mind, like, who's she talking to? Just, I didn't have it in me. I was just like, it was just, I'm done fighting. And I just remember walking out the library that day and just, this was summer 2007. Bearing in mind how I was dressed and all that, it was just completely freaky. I'm stood out in the middle of County Road at, like, I don't know, 9 o'clock in the morning or something, just thinking, what am I going to do here? And I thought, well, I'll just carry on as I am, but that is not an option. I go and get help. Sack that. I wouldn't know where to go to get help. And then I just thought, then my own life today. And kind of went for that. It was like, yeah. I'd often had thoughts about that, but it was usually, they weren't serious considerations. They were thoughts when my life was in a mess. It was like, oh, I know how to end this. It was never really, I was never at risk of doing it. But on that day, I just thought, that's the logical solution to this. And I never knew that day where I was going, but I ended up walking towards town from County Road, just walking towards town. I haven't got a clue what happened on that walk. I don't remember it. I remember prior to it, the reason I was in the library was because I was staying on my mate's couch, and it had been, do you remember the Knowsley Festival and the Who played up? It was the aftermath of that, and I'm kipping on his couch, and something funny was going on with my heart, and I thought, oh man, I'm having an heart attack. But it wasn't like, oh shit, I'm having a heart attack. It was, oh, I might die here. So, great. But then I realised, shit, I'm in my mate's house. It wasn't, oh shit, I'm dying. It was, oh shit, I can't die on his couch. So I just went out. I just went out of his house with this pain in my chest. And as soon as I got out, it stopped. I thought, I'm not just going to knock back on the door and say, oh, I've just come out to die, but I'm all right now, going to come back in. He's in bed asleep, keeping his hangover off. So I don't know, I was just wandering aimlessly, and it started to happen again, this pain in me. It was a panic attack, but I'd never had them, so I didn't know what it was.
Oh, right.
I thought it was a heart attack, and my head was just on fast forward, and I thought, I'm going to die in the street. It'll be in the echo. Oh, my mum and my brother will have to, oh God. So the nearest place I could see that was open was the library, and that's how I ended up being in the library. And that happened with the kid and the woman, and I come out and I made that decision and thought, yeah. And I think, I couldn't be sure, but I think I was heading, I was heading towards a train station, and I was trying to figure out, like, I think it was going to end up in South Parkway. There's a train that goes straight through and doesn't stop. I'll jump in front of that. And I walked down Grady, and I do remember letting on to a lad who I knew. Not well, we weren't friends or anything, just like a half a let on. And it shocked me out of it. I went, oh, and I ended up walking into town, and I hadn't spoken to my mum or any of my family for about 6 months maybe. I knew where she worked, I knew what she'd done for a living. Ironically enough, she worked in a rehab, which I never showed any interest in. I'd say things to her like, I'm not one of these dickheads out of your work. That's the type of thing I'd say to her when she'd be like telling me off. And I knocked on the door there, kind of they buzzed me in, I walked in, I asked for her, and the reception staff said, oh, she was head of service there, so she's a busy woman. You know, she's not available at the moment. Can we take your name? And as soon as I said, it's PJ, there was a weird atmosphere. So obviously, they've heard stories, and they were like, wait there, we'll go and get her. I freaked out a bit at their reaction. I went, no, I'll come back. I'll come back at dinner time. And I went round and sat in the Roscoe Head, just sat in there and had a water. It was bizarre, like dressed like I was, like it was just weird. Went back in. I hadn't spoken to my mum for a while. They said, yeah, she's in that room there. Went in the room. My mum just looked at me. So I'm thinking I'm like a lost little boy again, thinking I'm going to get told off by my mum here. And my mum just kind of looked at me, seeing the state I was in. She was about to start crying, and that broke me then. And I just burst out crying and just said, Mum, I need help. And whatever I've got to do, I'll do it. So we had this like 3-hour conversation that mainly involved her putting her hands on my back and just like getting all these tears out. And she said, you can come and stay at mine. We're going to try and get you into rehab. And, you know, I think you need to speak to your brothers, don't you? You haven't seen them. Like, yeah. It was really weird how I was really desperate. And I was willing to do anything in that moment. But like most people with drink problems, by the time I got to theirs, I was like, I'm not going to rehab. In my mind, trying to strategise, how can I get out of this? Oh no, what have I done? So it's madness, it is. Addiction is insane. From 2 hours earlier, planning to kill myself, being desperate, and then 2 hours later, I'm all right now, I'm staying at my ma's. I'm sound. Just get an haircut, put a top on, I'll be sound. But I thought, no, I've got to kind of go through with this. So I went into rehab just based on, I went in for the wrong reason. I was not going in there to get better and rebuild my life. I was going in there to shut my family up, which is not the way to go into rehab. I wouldn't advise anybody to do that. But I went in for the wrong reasons, and I absolutely stayed for the right ones. Because after about two weeks, but during them 2 weeks, I just, in my mind, was like, how do I get out of here without it being my fault? No, just scheming, like conniving, like, and I just couldn't think. And I went, I'll sit it out for a week. I'll think of something. And of all rehabs have like something they call TDs, therapeutic duties, which is basically clean up, do the hoovering and all that. It was my job to do the hoovering in the hallway of a morning. And I opened the door, and this lad who kind of I thought was a bit funny anyway, he didn't say thanks. And I opened the door, and I just thought, right, you, I'm going to engineer an argument with you, and I'll leave saying I didn't want to get. I'll say to me mum, I'm 26 at this point, scared of me mum. Like, I'll tell me mum I had to leave because we were going to end up fighting and all that. But I'll do it in a few days, so it looks like I've stayed for a bit. And during them few days, I was sitting in groups, listening to people's life story, and it was the first time I'd been exposed to the truth, basically, about people saying what's really going on for them, and it frightened the life out of me. In my head, I was just like, run for your life and don't turn back. Never come back to a place like this. But something in my heart was just like, you got to stay here. And I'm really like, it sounds like I'm spicing it up, romanticising it, but that's what happened. I remember sitting in groups in conflict with myself, leave, and then going, nah, this is it for you. This is your kind of, you've been dying to tell the truth for years. And I think after about 2 weeks, we sat, it was like a terraced house in Stonycroft. It had a big like garden in the back, summertime. The chaos had stopped in my head. I could sleep properly. I got my appetite back. I'd had my hair cut. I looked smarter. I had a top on. And I just met a couple of good people, and we'd had our tea one night, and part of the deal was you go to an AA meeting every night, and so in between tea and the AA meeting was a nice little space where you could just chill out. And just sitting there with a lad who's still my friend now, Victor, and we were just like, he'd come in 2 weeks before me, and we were just like, it's all right here, innit? And I was like, yeah, it is, you know. And that was it. I thought, I'm in. I'm not leaving. I'm not making stupid excuses anymore. And in that night, I just kind of made some decisions. Stop pretending. Stop pretending to be something you're not. And actually tell the truth in here. And I took a big risk, and I did it in the group. And the risk, because it wasn't a risk really, because I just thought, when you do this, when you expose yourself and show a bit of vulnerability, everyone in here, there's a lot of lads, the particular rehab I was in had a contract with Walton Jail where lads can come in, lads with drug problems can come in and shave a year off the sentence or something. I thought, these are all going to buzz off you. These are all going to think you're a dickhead. Even though the evidence that I'd sat watching for the previous week or two was like, that doesn't happen. I thought, yeah, everyone will eat. And it wasn't, I didn't set a time or a day to do it. It kind of happened by accident. One of the first things you do in rehab is read your life story out. And I took 4 goes because I just kept crying. Not because there was any particular traumatic event. It was just having your life in front of you on a piece of paper and thinking about sad times, but thinking, is that it? Is that fucking it? Like, I'm 26, look at that. Just failed at that, failed at... And so I get halfway through it and put the paper down, and one of the group workers, Joanne, at the time, I just thought, why is she doing this to me? Why? She can see I'm upset. Why is she making me do this? And it took 4, and she just kept saying to me, you are doing it. I'm like, I'm fucking not. And she'd go, well, we'll do it tomorrow. I was like, I'm not doing it tomorrow. I'm not doing it the next day. And after about 4 goes, I got it, read it to the bottom, and just went and sat out. The group worker said, after that, I think we all, because the group were willing me on, you know, because they'd seen me crumble 3 or 4 times. She said, we'll have a break. They give me a big round of applause and everything. And I went and sat in the back. And I know like this gets said about things like that, but I just did feel lighter. And I'd cried in front of them. And it was that moment where I just thought, like, you've cried in front of them now, so you either have to get off or just crack on with it. And that was where things changed. I just cracked on and started to feel more comfortable with who I was and revealing bits of myself that I'd always kept hidden through the mask of, like, just male bravado, really. And sat in that group, and then after 3 weeks, 4 weeks, started to feel, I'm getting into this, I feel different. And then 6 weeks, 7 weeks, being seen as someone who was trustworthy, and the new lads were told to come and see me when they was, and I was like, it was good for my ego, but that wasn't the thing I was buzzing off. I was just buzzing off, this is a bit of me, this, I like this. And then the owner of the place was like, if you're still clean and sober in 12 months, I'd have you working here. To me at that, I was unemployable. Like, you couldn't rely on me. To hear someone say that about me was like, wow. And then it just kind of, everything just, that was the place where things changed for me. That was the year 2007 in that place. Didn't enjoy it, but it just it planted a seed in my head. It opened the door for me that you don't have to live like that anymore. You can actually be who you're meant to be and live a different life. And it was pretty mind-blowing, really. And there is a mark, you know, there's a visible difference. I've got my family, they see it, they talk about it. I've got a couple of mates who I've had all that time. They don't say much. They're not talkative people. They're not open, emotional people. But one of them, I just remember him saying, I think I was still in rehab mode and I wanted to talk to him. I wanted to apologise to him and I wanted to thank him for being... And I started and he went, don't start with all that shit. He said, look, I prefer you now to how you were. Can we just keep it like that? And I went to protest. I went, but I've got all... And I just went, yeah, you're right, man. All right, fair enough. Yeah. Wow. not everybody wants to talk in depth, do they? And that's what he said, and that meant a lot to me. That.
But you'd found this sort of, I suppose you're connected with yourself, hadn't you? You were talking before about connection.
That's absolutely it, yeah. In order to connect with the world around me, I had to do that first. I had to connect with myself first, and then you hear a lot of like dramatic terms in recovery circles, like spiritual awakening, and a lot of people find God in that, don't they? With me, it was just, I woke up. I felt like I woke up. I felt like I'd just been in a daze for the past 10 years. I've been living my life on autopilot, wondering why I end up in trouble all the time. And this is it. 26, I finally woke up and realised that was a big turning point, like, for me.
To quote Pulp Fiction, a moment of clarity.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's exactly what it was, yeah. It was more like, can't put it down to one exact moment, but it was just a series of events that led to me waking up and realising you can have a decent life here. But prior to that, I didn't think I could. Just thought you lost stuff.
But when you look back now, is there almost a little bit of dissociation where you go, did that really happen to me?
Yeah. I often think it. Yeah. Yeah, it's like, I'm still the same person. I still like the same things. I still dress the same. I've still got similar interests, but my behaviour's completely different.
Yeah.
The way I behave is completely different. And I often, because now I've been in recovery longer than I drank and took drugs.
Right.
So I often look at the pre-2007 me and go, you're not better.
It's almost like you reset
easy.
now, isn't it?
Yeah.
For that period. Like
That's it.
Yeah.
And you can reflect on it now, and like in a lot of cases, it's producing this amazing stuff that you're writing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, man. Yeah, definitely. Like, being in recovery as the initial boost of feeling healthier, having a lot of chaos removed from your life, having a few more quid in your pocket, and a feeling of relief. But then it's given me so much more, like real recovery. I think that the dictionary definition of it is taking possession of something you've lost. Definitely, like, got like me self-esteem back and belief in myself now. Bordering on arrogance, some might say. Yeah.
That's interesting. I think about the actual semantic, but to recover something, you go and get it back, don't you? You just think recovery, and you just think someone who's going through the rehab process.
Yeah,
but
recovery, like, football terms, a recovery tackle. You've lost the ball, you've just gone and got it back. Yeah.
And now, of course, you're working in, I think what you were saying earlier, you're not leading counselling sessions, I don't think, are you?
No,
you work with people who've been through a similar process, but not as far down the road as you are, and helping them.
Yeah, they're just kind of at the start of their new life, and that's the bit I like, because you rarely see a lot of light bulb moments for people. It's like it's quite a joy to be a part of that, where I identify with that, where you can see them just going, you can see the cogs going round, and they can go, I can have a different life here if I just change my behaviour. It's like, it sounds so simple, but when you're drinking, you're convinced that I can have a different life if he stops doing that, if she stops getting on my case, if my boss stops being a dickhead, if my landlord just leaves. It's always someone else's fault. And then in like recovery centres, when the focus is on you, it's either, no, I'm not having that, and you resist everything and end up relapsing, or you get people who literally, I remember one guy, mate of mine, Glyn, he's become like a really good worker in that field now, but he was in rehab when I worked in one. And I think he spent about 2 weeks going, packing his bags and not understanding why he was there, and looking at his feet in groups. And then about 2 weeks in, he did literally, he done the international gesture for surrender. He put his arms up in group, and he just went, all right, I'm willing to go on suggestions here. I'm not resisting anymore. And that moment changed his life. He now works in that rehab I'm talking about. He's got a great life, great relationships with his family. Everything's just worked out for him. And I think it was because of that moment. That's what recovery's about, really, understanding your way hasn't worked. It's just that, but you want to hold on. It's like they're stuck to you. That's solid, all your old behaviours and beliefs. It's traumatic to let them go, but it's even more traumatic to keep hold of them. It's a real, like, it's like being on a knife edge, you know, and you fall that way, you don't even want to think about falling that way. But that surrender that Glyn's done in that group that day, never forget it. Everyone has to have their own moment to surrender if they're going to change, really.
And in terms of lending, I don't mean this to sound glib, because I don't mean it in this sense, but in terms of lending authenticity to your writing, obviously the characters that you create and what they say and do, what you lived was important for that, wasn't it?
You're right, yeah.
Because, I mean, yeah, there's fantasy elements to the stories. Obviously, they're not all true. Yeah. Many of them aren't whatsoever, but they're based on things that you've witnessed or you've grew up around or you've seen other people. So I suppose without that, your writing wouldn't have that truth to it, would it?
No, I doubt it very much.
I mean, it might do. Some people are just amazing social observers, aren't they? And can conjure up within their own imagination, but then that's very rare, that, I guess.
It's like... without knowing it, I have a brief kind of narrative that I want to stick to, but I always end up writing about, like, masculinity and all the bravado and the ego that goes with it. It's like naturally, that's just the way I go. One trick pony, but that's
I think it's an important story to keep telling. Yeah. We were saying earlier about, like, it's changing, but it's still got a lot of way to go, hasn't it?
Yeah, and it's something we can relate to, and that's what makes, you know, you talked before about your success. That's what makes it so successful, is because it's so relatable, and people are like, oh yeah, you know, something will really stick in the mind. It's not fiction. No, it is.
Yeah,
because you're writing it, because you're making up stories, but you know, people can fully relate to it.
It's just, I don't tend to focus too much on, in my day job, like actual addiction to drugs or alcoholism. I'm like, that ain't the real problem. In a way, that's the answer to your problems, but actually it's becoming a big part of the problem. The problem, it's just like, it's the human condition, innit? We've all got our own kind of insecurities, and we all respond in ways that don't help matters, really. I mean, for me, there's like, still now, because I've been living differently for so long, my ego, and I don't mean like in the traditional sense. When I say ego, I mean in addiction terms, that your ego is the thing that wants to kill you, basically. It wants the worst for you. It doesn't want you to join in. It doesn't want you to open up. It doesn't want you to connect with people. It just wants you isolated and alone and making excuses. And then there's your best self, which just it does. It wants you to find joy in the world. And
do you know the people who they're in that sort of hole of blaming everybody else, or making excuses, or even the ones where it's like, oh, it's fucking easy for him. How do you think? How would you help someone get out of that hole?
It's like it's complex, but in the beginning, it just has to be. And the way it was for me was, I had some good workers around me. As soon as I'd bring somebody else into it, they just go, we're not talking about that. While me and you are sitting here, we're only talking about you. Yeah, but me boss, nah, we're not talking about your boss. Or when you start making excuses, well, if she hadn't have left me, you know, I wouldn't be... Well, hold on, why did she leave you? Oh, because I went missing with the Christmas money and got pissed. You know, that type of stuff. Getting you to look at your part in things.
Yeah, so you're teaching responsibility in a way.
Yeah.
Or reteaching it.
Yeah.
But that ego, I suppose, is you're almost desperate to go, no, but you're not listening to what I'm telling you. I'm trying to explain why this happened.
Yeah.
But it's saying, no, tell them why it happened, that it was their fault.
Exactly, yeah.
But it feels compelling to yourself, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When you're trying to, it's like that in a lot of
justification
situations,
and that. Here's why this happened, but not looking at. It's just so easy to blame other people. It's so easy. It just makes life what you think it makes life easier for you, but you're digging yourself further in. And I mean, it's not exclusive to alcoholics and addicts, that, but with alcoholics and addicts, that type of behaviour will always lead them back to drugs and alcohol, and they use drugs and alcohol in a way that's probably going to kill them. You know, premature deaths of. Yeah, it's like alcoholism, really. This condition and addiction, it isn't. Don't want to get into the debate of it, but when you see people in town in wheelchairs with the limbs cut off because they've been injected into the groins, they didn't sit in school at the careers office and say, I want to be a heroin addict, sat on Bold Street telling the big issue. I don't know how much. They choose to use drugs, of course they do, but they don't choose to be addicts and destroy their own lives in that way.
Absolutely, yeah.
But actual recovery is a choice. Recovery is a choice. Are you going to choose to start being responsible and accountable and sensible and reliable? Because we can do it. That's what I say to people. We don't write anybody off. We can do it. It has to start somewhere, and let's start it here and now. I know for myself, I had lots of shortcomings, but I was a terrible letdown. Totally unreliable. And me one-to-one worker I was telling him, I said, I feel really embarrassed. There's loads of people I've let down and over all kinds of stuff. And he went, well, why don't you make a decision here now in this instant that if you say you're going to do something, do it. Do it no matter what. And he kind of instilled it in me. It's obvious in it to most people, but it wasn't to me. But it's something I've got in my armoury now where, if I say something, I'm going to do it. The complete opposite of what I used to do. It's important to me. It's like I don't ever want to go back to that life. So I need to kind of keep behaving like this. It's like when people in early recovery say to me, oh, I won't drink. I'm not going to drink. It's like, well, if it was just a simple choice like that, why didn't you do it ages ago? A firm believer like that. Your behaviour determines whether you go in recovery or you go back to relapse, because words and, promises and all that of someone who's got that far down the line in addiction, they don't mean much. It's got to be backed up by actions. And in the beginning for me, it was just be reliable. Start with that. Just start being reliable and something will happen. And it did.
Wow. Let's put a whole new perspective on the Chronicles of Roy, all that now.
Yeah.
Do you think from your work as well, though, are you seeing, is it getting addiction and homelessness, because that's something you only have to walk around town to think that's getting worse? And again, without looking for excuses for individuals, like you said, no one sits there and goes, when I grow up, I want to be paraplegic, heroin addict. So austerity could be a reason. Yeah. A million and
There's
one
loads
reason.
of factors.
Have you noticed it's getting worse? Do you think from more or less the front line of work with people?
Yeah.
Is it more people coming through where you work?
Yeah, I think a lot of the old stereotypes are getting, it's still pretty bad, but they're getting smashed really, that actually drug addicts are people with needles in their arms, in doorways, and alkies are people on benches, pissing themselves, drinking white cider. They're the obvious stereotypical cases, but there's loads where you'd never know, visibly. You would never ever know. And it's not so much what you're drinking, what you're using, how much you're doing, who you're doing it with, where you're doing it. It's what's it doing to you. And I was never a daily drinker. I was never a morning drinker. I've never been hospitalised due to alcohol, and I could go without. But once I started, everything went pear-shaped. Every area of my life just went pear-shaped. But I would I would never factor in that might be responsible for it. What I need to do is get a job. What I need to do is move. It's obvious now what I need to do is stop drinking, because you'll never achieve anything. That was the thing with me. I needed to change my behaviour, but that was never going to happen if I continued to drink. So it was almost like at recovery groups, you come in to them under the smokescreen of alcohol and drugs, but when you get in and you stay in, you realise they weren't the problem. They had to go in order for me to solve the problem, which was me. It's eye-opening. It was very eye-opening for me, that, 'cause I just thought, well, if drinking's making my life miserable, and then I stopped drinking, I'll be sound. And then I stopped drinking and I wasn't sound at all. I was worse. I was what's known like in recovery kind of circles as a dry drunk. I wasn't drinking alcohol, but not much had changed. Still quite negative and cynical and not great company, irritable and all that. And that's where rehab comes in. They treat you like any other condition. It gets treated.
Yeah, well, it should be treated. That's where like the war on drugs just doesn't work.
Nah,
because we don't treat it as an illness.
We
treat it as a problem and punish people. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's been super fascinating, mate, having you on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having us.
Where can people listen to Roy online if they can, and where can they go and see you and the other people of Performing Violette?
Roy is just on Soundcloud, a couple of recordings, and kind of Violette social media. Yeah, we don't really do big public advertising things. It's not a secret society, but it's social media via Violette or myself, really.
Amazing.
We always like to get new people in, see what they think.
We're looking forward to doing that, aren't we?
Yeah, we're 100% down.
That's right, boys.
Thanks
mate.
so much.
Nice one. Thanks so much.